check. Good. All right. All right. Now don't y'all pay any attention to me. The kitchen's closed. Cafe's closed. Cake's done. Just come and have a seat, as close to the front as you can. I don't know if y'all understand this, but close to the front is not the back seat. I don't know if you've noticed this, but people don't always do what you ask them to do. You do know that. Yes, you do. They've never been on a deployment. That's right. Y'all come on over and have a seat. Stephanie does not sing often, and you want to be seated for this song. So I have been given instructions that we are to wait for Stephanie to sing before we go any farther.
I've been given some special instructions about your son as well.
Listen, what I would like for you to do is use this microphone when you come. You can use either one of them, but introduce who you are. Tell us what your relationship is, whether family or friends or whatever, and then talk as close to the mic as you can. We really do want to record these remarks, and they'll be posted on our YouTube channel and on our website. So anybody that has any remarks, while I'm here, let me just start with mine. And many of our church family will have heard this before, but Glenn and Janet Walker are in many, many ways responsible for the fact that I am alive and functioning today. And that's literally true. During a season of my life as I was in exile, living in a truck and running across the country with no place to call home, every part of my life broken, and on many occasions, not just once or twice, but on many occasions, I would have been so completely broke that I had no money to eat for literally days at a time. And Glenn, out of nowhere, would send me a note saying, "Hey, listen, stop at the next truck stop at Western Union. I left some money for you there to eat." And literally, it's all I had to eat. And somewhere in the middle of these 3 years of total exile, Glenn and Janet sent me a note saying, "The Lord told us to prepare a room for you in our upstairs if you should ever need a place to call home. This room is yours." And it took about 18 months or so after that revelation, but eventually I moved there, and I owe so much to them. I don't know if Glenn would want me to share this, but then but I didn't ask for permission. Because the ultimate commitment of their lives to mine was early in this season of exile. I had a truck that just completely broke down, and I couldn't make any money, and I couldn't drive it, and so I said to them on one occasion, I just need to trade this truck in, and I'm about, and not with any thought at all that it was going to land as it did, but I said I'm probably $20,000 short of being able to trade the truck for something I can use to make a living. And next thing I know, Glenn's gone. If you know Glenn, that's not an unusual situation. Every time we take a deployment, Glenn will be off of the bus and gone. Gone is just a normal activity for Glenn, but he was gone and came back probably, I don't know, a couple hours later, 3 hours later, and laid a check on the table for $20,000. Said I just took out a loan against my motorhome so that you could make a living. I owe them so very much. And I want you to know that if your next 50 years are like your last 50 years, heaven will be brighter when you get there, as the people you and I both know are watching over the balcony, watching your lives, and you have made a difference in a lot of us. And I love you, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you. Somebody else, just come and share. Make sure you use the microphones, please.
Rick, I didn't really realize this until just now, but you and I really share many things in common. For example, if it wasn't for Glenn and Jan, I literally wouldn't be alive either.
Really?
Yeah. Get this.
It never occurred to me.
They developed and set aside a room for me too.
Whoa! So that makes me a son. Does that mean I get a part of the inheritance? Don't forget that. You remember that later on.
Well, I think that was part of my inheritance that went to the
Oh, no.
My name is Mark. I'm the son of Glenn and Janet, the first eldest son. Then there's the liars in the family.
And no matter what anybody else thinks, you're the best looking.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to share with you it's just a glimpse. It's just a memory. It's just something that's in my head. It was when I was very young. We were living in Greeley, Colorado at the time. I was just a little boy. I was bored out of my mind. I was just sitting on the couch and doing things that bored young boys do, and had flipped my feet up on the backrest of the couch and was staring up in the ceiling. And my mother came into the room, and there was a piano in there. She sat down and she started to play the piano, as she would do from time to time. And it was like this call. Pretty soon my father would just be in there, and he would lay his hands on her shoulders, and the two of them would just sing hymns. And it's like I said, it's just this impression memory of what it was to grow up in a home where your parents truly loved each other. And I'm blessed to know that I grew up not having to have many of the fears that many of my friends did growing up at the same time about whether or not their parents were going to be together or not, or whether they were loved by their parents. And so I'm truly blessed by that. And looking back on that, I can see how much of a blessing it was. And at the time, what I was really thinking was how cool it would be to walk on that ceiling that I was staring up at. It's a lot of fun. There's just so many things that as you go through life and you have your friends that want to come over and spend time at your house because they feel welcome by your parents. And so we just spent a lot of time at our house when we were there. We grew up together. We, as brothers and sisters, we would fight as people do. And there was a time where I got a pellet gun. Actually, I think it was a rifle that, I think it was both of our rifles. And so we had to take turns, and we had to be really safe. My mother was very concerned about the whole thing, and we went out and we were playing around with them, and I was just going to try and scare my brother and shoot near him, and I ended up hitting him in the back of the head with this pellet gun. And I had to make all kinds of promises about how he could use it for the next 2 hours, all of his own, and a bunch of different deals to make sure that he didn't tattletale on me. And it was, I think it was a year or two ago that he went and told them anyways about it. And so this is what you need to know, is that little brothers are tattletales, right? No? No? Okay. I think so. I think that's what you learn from those kind of stories. My parents always talked about each other to us as mom and dad. It wasn't your dad or your mom or Glenn or Jan. It was always mom and dad. that's just the way that I knew them. And to me, it's still strange. Matt, friend, is here, and he talks about his dad and says, "Dad." And I'm like, "No, that's not Dad. This is Dad." And the only time that character would ever break is whenever my mother got concerned about something. Then she would let it loose that it was Glenn. So we would go, my dad would take us out on snowy days and hook up a extension ladder to the back of the car, and we'd all get on, and my mother would be the entire time saying, Glenn, now be careful, Glenn. Don't go too fast, Glenn." You know, that's when we knew that she was really concerned, when she started to call him Glenn. And I think it was just recently that I saw on the news that somebody had taken some kids out on a extension ladder and towed them around the neighborhood and got arrested for endangering a child's life. So that's the kind of situation she would get concerned in. And one of the other times that happened was actually when Stephanie and I were getting married. And for those of you who haven't heard this story, it's a very long story, but to boil it down, the bottom line is that Stephanie's dress was locked up in a shop right outside where we were getting married at, and we were having a hard time trying to find somebody to come back in and open up the shop to get the dress. And so we were doing everything we could to try and figure out how to get a hold of the owners of the shop and get somebody in there to unlock things. And my dad showed up, and he said, "How's it going, son?" And I said, "It's not going well. We can't find this dress." And he's like, "It's not the end of the world." I said, "I know it's not the end of the world. I told my wife it's not the end of the world, but it's the end of the world for her. I need to go get this dress." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I'm going to go get this dress." And he said, "Son, I'll get the dress for you. Don't you worry about it." And I knew what that meant, but I wasn't sure that my mother knew what that meant until she started running after him saying, Glenn, slow down, Glenn." I'm sorry? Yes, and we eventually got the dress. So, one way or another. The police did get called, but it's okay. There's nothing permanent on any arrest records or anything like that. But I truly am blessed. I've got a family that I love deeply, and it's because my parents set that kind of pattern up for us so that we knew that we were always safe, and that we were a family first. And so there's a whole bunch of other things. My sister can just be a real brat sometimes, but you still love your family. And so I just wanted to say thank you to my mom, to Mom, and to Dad. Thank you.
Someone else. There you go. Good. Thank you.
I'm Virginia. I'm Glenn's sister, and I have a very short story to tell. Glenn was my image, my brother, among other things, but he was also the image of a man to me from the time I was 10 years old. So what I saw in him, I projected on every man subsequent to that, and they had to meet up to those standards. He was extremely good to me while I was in high school and college. He had gone away to the Army, but I got cards, letters, flowers, candy. In fact, in college, I would get flowers from him, and somebody would say to me, "Oh, you have a boyfriend?" I said, "No, it's my brother." "Your brother is sending you flowers." Okay, I don't want to know any more about this. So anyway, we were very close, and he went away to the Navy, and then started working with the navigators in Colorado. And at some point, I went up to visit him, as I often did, and this is the story he reminds me of, I'd like to tell you, that on the way to the airport after I'd visited for a while, he said I was unusually quiet. And he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, in my, 20-year-old female attitude, "Nothing's wrong." And he said, "No, I'm serious. What's wrong? I mean, you've been pouting kind of since we got in the car." And I said, "Why didn't you tell me you had a girlfriend?" And he said, "Girlfriend? I don't have a girlfriend." Well, he didn't even know that he was in love with this woman. But I, on the other hand, saw it immediately, and have seen it in his eyes for 50 years.
Hi, I'm Colton Bannon, and I'm the grandparents of Glenn and grandson, of Glenn and Janet, which I call Grandma and Granddads. They're really great. They've just always been there for us, so I just want to say thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Shirley Sundstrom Alquist. I taught at Northside for 35 years. I had the chance of getting to know Janet and Glenn through their 3 children in high school. Yes.
So you probably could tell us which one really is the best one.
As a teacher, I would not do that. But it was really phenomenal to watch these 3 as they grew up, as they took roles of leadership in the school, as they led in good moral character and personalities. You can always reflect back where that came from. Mom and Dad. Dependability was another thing. Whenever there was a class wall to be done, or a float to be made for homecoming, or whatever needed to be done, I could always depend on a Walker. Now, all those characteristics, not just in academics, but in Christian leadership. It was a good reflection of Mom and Dad. We appreciate you very much.
Year. What? Oh, okay.
That may be the shortest speech in your entire life, Ron. I'm impressed.
Oh, I'm Leslie. I'm Rick's wife, and when I married Rick 7 years ago, the Walkers became part of my family, and they are the most generous people that I've ever met, truly. I mean, whenever there's a need and it gets done and they're around, I know that they're the ones that took care of it, and they do it silently. They don't boast about helping people. They just have that in their heart, that God put that there for them, and they just come around. They're just like little silent angels that just take care of all the needs and everything that needs to be done, no matter what it is. And I'm honored to be your friend. I love you both very much.
Who's next?
Hello. My name is Mary Darling. I am Stephanie's mother. She's married to Mark, the son. And I moved down here in 1999. And I want to say thank you to Janet and Glenn for always making me feel like family.
Who's next?
Is it on? It's on now. I hear myself. So I echo what she just said from the other side. I'm Nellie Solis, and I am Joanne's sister, if you couldn't tell by now. I'm the prettier one. I'm the oldest one. We rock. Okay. And I want to say to Glenn and Janet, thank you for giving our family the best brother-in-law a gal can have. When Joanne and Dan met, I personally thought, she's crazy. But then I met the parents. Dan, you know I love you. He's the best brother-in-law I have. He's the only one I have. And so I thank you because you definitely instilled some great values, some great morals into his life. And I have loved sharing in your family and being part of it through marriage. And I never felt unloved or a stranger. I always felt like family with you and in your house, and many Thanksgiving that we have shared, or Christmases. And so it has been really special to me to know that you are such a loving family, always accepting everybody right where they're at. And so I love you both for that.
Someone else?
Sister rivalry. What can I tell you? I can definitely not let her do that. I am Joanne Solis Walker, and she is my sister, and I happen to think I'm the prettier one.
I agree.
So I have the privilege of being married to Dan and our beautiful daughter, Adriana. And so I call mom and dad, because that's who they truly have been for me. I'm really blessed that I grew up in a wonderful family, had a great upbringing as a child, and my daddy and my mommy just it was a wonderful family. And so when I met Dan, the same thing that happened with Virginia with Dad, Mom knew from Dan that we were going to be an item for a long time, even before he was 100% sure of that. But I walked into this family, and I've gotten flowers from Dad on Valentine's Day, and I have gotten chocolates, and I have been celebrated like a daughter. I feel like I gained a sister and I gained a brother, and when they married, I gained another sister and another brother. I love, adore my niece and my nephew, and I feel like this is the way it's supposed to be. It's right. And God has truly blessed us. Mom and Dad are crazy. They do things that are completely unexpected from any human being at all. Like drive from one side of the coast to the other to board up our house because there's a hurricane coming, and then the hurricane comes their way instead of our way. Yeah, and so then they're wondering who's going to board up their house. You know what I mean, right? And but most of all, perhaps the most important thing is that they have been spiritual figures in our life. And so anytime that I need a particular kind of prayer, I know I can call Dad, and I know I can call Mom. I know I have that support. There have been many times where I've asked Dad for just his words of wisdom and his counsel. And that has been such a huge blessing in our life. And that particular covering is what strengthens our marriage. To have people like that who have been together for such a long time, just praying for us makes all the difference. And the truth is that who they are is reflected in their son, and the way that he is in our family reflects who they are as a couple. So I can definitely cheer for 50 more years, because we take those 50 years that we celebrate now and acquire them as our own, with the hopes that God would also bless us in the same way that he has blessed you. So I love you, Mom and Dad.
So Joanna and I knew each other for just a little bit. I called Mom. I was actually, for those of you who got to come out to the little Wesleyan church out on the other side of the state and help out, some of you mentioned that. But I was walking around that little Wesleyan church saying, hey, Mom, I met this girl. She's really nice. At the end of that phone call, she said, this is the one. And I said, excuse me? So I just affirmed that. It was one phone call that she knew that Joanne was the woman for me. And then just last week, we had someone staying in our house, which we're honored now, living in Indiana where we're at, to start welcoming people into our home, as my parents taught me when we were younger, that we always welcomed people into our home. And in that process, I was sharing with this woman who serves in ministry in Australia, and was just sharing how Mom and Dad journeyed with me in the process of seeking the Lord and seeking scriptures together for God's calling upon my life of where I was going to go to college back in the day. And you know, I just shared with her a little bit the story of how we journeyed together, and this woman looked at me and she said, you have a godly heritage. You have a godly heritage. You have been raised by a mother and father of the Lord. And so I just want to share reaffirm what many of us have said. And from a stranger who hears one story, she's able to know the kind of parents that I have. Thanks for being great parents. We love you.
You may now kiss the bride.
Say that. So I'm Matt Cowley.
So are you singing with Stephanie?
Go ahead and hit the music if you want. Been a family friend since I was this high. I had a hand, so Mark is not the only one that left his mark on Dan. I too had the good fortune of playing basketball with him, and I'm part of the reason why he's not the most handsome son, because if you'll notice, he has a little scar underneath his eye. Which I was able to do playing basketball, and it really disqualified him from running for the most handsome son. So I had a part to play in that as well. One of the coolest things, so everyone's talked about generosity, and that's goes without saying, but one of the really cool things that I've had the privilege of seeing is, and I think it's one of the hardest things to do throughout life, is consistency. 50 years, and I don't think I've ever seen you fight, and it's not because either of you are not strong-willed or anything like that. You may mutter under your breath as you walk away, or any of these kind of things like that. But it's a remarkable consistency from thinking back to when I was in school or growing up through Pinellas Park or anything like that. The love has been the same. The open arms and open hearts and all that stuff has been the same. And so it's remarkable, and what you can tell is that those who have watched have learned. And so that's kudos to you.
So I'm the oldest grandchild, and what? Yeah, I'm Kaylin, and they take us so many places. We've been to Tennessee, we've been to Kentucky, Texas, Illinois, Indiana, so many other places, and all three of us love them so much, and we love them so much.
Is there anyone else wants to? Yeah, there we go.
My name is Ellen. I met Janet and Glenn in February of 2014 on a Wednesday night service. They're actually my first friends of many to come here at Crossbridge. And when I first met them, they were almost like parent figures, and they had found out that I had recently got engaged. And no, you're very young. And they had found out that I had recently got engaged, and they wanted to know all about this guy, Mike, who's now my husband. But I've gotten to know Janet a little better, but both of them. And Janet has met me for many of a lunch and breakfast. And but the thing that really impresses me most is not really what they say, but how they live their life. And it's made an impression on me. And you've been a great example. And I love you both. And congratulations.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Adriana. I'm the middle grandchild and definitely the cutest. Let me rephrase that. I'm the cutest girl in the family. There you go. Just because Colton's the only boy. That's the only reason. But we've recently moved to Indiana, and I've never felt, in a way, I guess, closer to them than ever. I guess before, I never really noticed how much family, how much it is important, and what it means to us. And being far away from my family, it's really hard. And so being here tonight is really special for me. And we miss you a lot.
This is very hard for me. I've never done this in my life, but these, you got to know you are the most two precious people I've ever met. As a family, as mom and dad, as friends. I was in rehab, and she comes with a beautiful rose, and I love roses, and it's on my smartphone as a wallpaper. But and one day, don't be careful what you say in front of them, because I never said a word, and they showed up. Glenn and his daughter and two kids came along and took about 5 huge green bags of stuff from where I live. I'm in a condo, but I had broken my leg and I couldn't do any of that. But anyway, you just have to know. And I think you already do from what people have said here, that these two are very precious. God bless you.
So I'm Kristen, the firstborn of Glenn and Janet, the one that made them want more children because I was so good.
I think what you meant, you made them want to try again.
Yeah, no. Growing up, we did well together, the three of us. But I have to say that no one ever got grounded until Mark came along. I didn't even know what the word was until my brothers came along. And I kept telling them, if you just follow what they say, you won't get in trouble. And they didn't listen. And just follow what I'm doing and you'll be fine. But they didn't listen. So, and so we were raised and we had a good life. My parents worked hard. We wanted to go to Christian school. So they worked and worked and worked to put us through Christian school. I'll cry. And then we decided to move to Florida. So I was going to come with Dad while Mom and the boys stayed back, and they were going to sell the house. And Mom said, "Find a school, but if you could, try not to go to a Christian school because it costs so much." I'm like, "Okay." So we go to the first public school, and I walked out going, "Oh no, we cannot do this. It must be a Christian school." And we walked into the first Christian school, which is Northside, and I said, "This is it. This is where we have to go to school." And we called Mom in Colorado and said, "We're going to Christian school." And she's like, we can't do this. And they did it. They did it all the way through. They worked job after job. Mom would teach all day, and then she'd work another job tutoring. And then on Sundays, she'd play piano at different churches that we didn't even go to just to make the money so we could go to school. We never were without. I remember times were tough and we didn't have food. And Mom's like, "Oh, it's some fancy night tonight. We're going to pull everything out of the fridge and we're going to make something great tonight." And we never knew that just meant we really had no food and she was just trying to scrape it all together. But we didn't know. And then we're here and all my friends keep saying, "Do you know you have really good parents?" I'm like, "They're just my parents. It's what I've been raised with." And they're like, "No, you have good parents. I don't have my mom. I don't have my dad. They aren't together." And my friends would call and go, "Hey, I talked to your mom today." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, I called her. I needed some help with something." And, "Oh, did you know your dad came over today?" I'm like, "What? I didn't, you haven't talked to me in 2 weeks, but you're talking with my mom and dad." And I have friends who still, after all these years, will call and go, "How are Mom and Dad doing?" And they all love them. And my parents have adopted all of them. They're just, "Yeah, bring your friends over, do whatever. They'll do anything for you." And then I had my daughter, and I love my daughter. She is wonderful, but she was the worst child in the car you would ever see. I had panic attacks driving around with her because all she'd do is scream and scream and scream and choke, and I thought she was going to die, just me going to the grocery store. And there were times that I called my mom, I'm like, "I'm sitting in a parking lot with this child screaming, I cannot drive home." And my mom would drive all the way there, pick the two of us up, and then her and my dad would go later because Ken was at work. And they'd go later and pick up my car for me just so my baby wouldn't scream. And then we had this crazy idea to homeschool our kids, and they backed us up 100%, and they helped us through it, and the kids are doing great. And I was just raised by these wonderful people that I really didn't know were so wonderful until I realized all my friends and people I know don't have this. This is not normal, and people keep telling me it's not normal. I remember when I was little, they were fighting. And some of you have never seen them fight, but they were fighting one day. And Mom walked one way and Dad walked another, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You must stay together." And Dad's like, "We're just fighting. It's no big deal. We'll be fine in a little bit." And one of my best advice that I got from my father was, no matter what happens in your marriage, go to counseling. It doesn't matter if your marriage is fantastic, go to counseling, because it'll keep you together. And I've told more people that I know, hey, even if your marriage is great, go to counseling. It keeps you together and it keeps you grounded. I love my husband. I'm so glad we're together. We went through some rough times in the beginning. He was living with my parents down the street from me, and he decided to postpone our wedding for a year, and I was devastated. And my parents said, "Come back home, Ken. You still have a place to live." And he lived with my parents for a year until we got married. Their daughter was hurt, but they knew that we were supposed to be together, and they stuck with him and let him stay there. And it was a huge blessing because he was right there. He got to see what a marriage was like. They're just the most wonderful people. I know I can rely on them no matter what. I can say I need this and it's done. And they back us up no matter what. They love our kids. Oh, the grandkids are everything. I keep telling them they were not the same people when I was little. Granddad took us to the store. He said we could get a large Slurpee. I'm like, what? I never even got Slurpees, and you get a large? Granddad says as long as we drink it, it's fine. They were not the same people. They love their grandchildren. They love their children. They love their friends, their family. They would do anything for anyone. And I am sure that they have touched everyone's life in here and many others. And we just thank you for the people that you are.
Hello. Hi, so I'm Maria, and I can't believe I'm actually going to have to squat down a little bit for this. So here's a couple things. Like you were saying as the granddaughter that you didn't realize until you were gone, and like the whole thing just like not having, well, that's kind of how I feel about them now. They were our neighbors. My husband's back there, Tony. They were our neighbors for 21 years, and they stopped by recently to give us the invitation to come and said, come on in, and I kind of felt like kidnapping them. Didn't want to let them go. And Janet says, you know that we're just right around the corner, which they're supposed to be right around the corner, kind of like only 2 blocks away, but they're not. And also someone mentioned the hurricane thing, when, you know, they're leaving to go board. Well, of course, when they left, almost everybody left on our block to, you know, go away when they left. And, of course, we didn't. And, of course, I was shooting Kristen out pictures. Oh, this is what happened. You wouldn't believe the tree that went down in your parents' backyard and everything. So now, of course, there's new neighbors for me to torture. And yes, you can imagine, because I am also called the cat lady. And the new neighbors are trying to get used to me. You know, I'm kind of out there in my pajamas as I'm feeding the herd of the cats. And, hey, hi there, it's me. And never realized how much they put up with me until they were gone, and now I'm really missing them. And of course, once they do get into their home, hoping soon, I will be coming by to visit them. But just wanted to say that you are greatly missed, and had no idea how much, and you know, the things that we had been through together. And with my kids, which we have grown adults, so they watched us go through many things with our kids, and still trying to get there, you know, through some things that we've been dealing with. And, you know, every time we see them, how are things going? And, you know, oh, well, today's like this or that, but always knowing that they're always there for us. And still, even though you guys aren't there, You're still with us in our hearts, and I love you and want to say happy 50th and congratulations. And when you're in there, I'm going to be by Tiba.
Anyone else? Well, we want to thank you for coming. Thank you for making this a very special time, and I know it meant a lot to Glenn and Janet to have you here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. This concludes our night together, unless you, Glenn, want to say something.
What is this? Oh, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the kind words, and I just let you know that my wife, I love her dearly, and because of her, this marriage has been around 50 years. She is stuck with me, and I just thank you so much. Thank her so much for loving me and caring for me, and I know she loves me and cares for me, and I love her. And I appreciate all the kind words. I thank you very much. We know our shortfalls, and it's just nice to have people think that we're okay. And particularly love my kids and my grandkids. And thank you so much, Pastor, for hosting this whole thing and getting it going. It'll be memories for us for a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, and good night. Thank you. Yeah.